Hi, everybody. This is your host, Christian, and today we have Idris. Idris, welcome to the Leisure Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Christian.
My pleasure. So, all right. So you're working at Vizlib, right? And it's a data visualization company. And something that I was like, the idea behind having you here is that you spend there a lot of time for a startup. Like you spend there something like 3 years. I think a lot of things changed in startups in 3 years.
Yeah,
So
it's called Vizlib, Vizlib, which essentially is Viz from visualization, and then Lib from library. So you combine that together, you have Vizlib. And just to give you a background on Vizlib, Vizlib is a data visualization company. In the BI2 market, the major ones are ClickSense, Tableau, Looker, Google Analytics, etc. So for you to use Vizlib, you need to be a ClickSense customer. ClickSense is one of the biggest ones. Our software just gives you it's a value added software and it just gives you more I want to call it sexy way of looking at your data in a way. It's really cool. I mean, you could play around with different kind of features and extensions on it's amazing. And then that's one part of the product, and we recently launched another product called Strato. That's more of a standalone product. The only thing is you need to have your data on Snowflake. Snowflake, for people that don't know much about data warehouse, is basically a data warehouse, which means if you have a lot of companies will keep their own data, which means they will have a data storage within the company, or maybe they'll use other companies, and others will have their data stored somewhere else by, i.e., for example, Snowflake. So Snowflake is a data warehouse. In a layman's term, it just means you're paying someone to keep your data for you, and it's just more cost efficient and it's a bit cheaper. So for you to use this new product called Strato, you need to have your data in Snowflake, and you don't require any code whatsoever. So yeah, so that's what Vizlib does.
you started there as a finance controller, right?
Yes. It was I think I joined around June, maybe, yeah, June 2019 or so. At which point there were about 25 of us, maybe 20, 25, I think. Yeah, and we had WeWork office in Paddington then, and I remember meeting our CEO, who happened to be from Germany, by the way. He's German, and Martin. So yeah, and before that, I was actually working for a practice, but within that practice, we had lots of tech companies, from startup to scale up companies. So I more or less have an idea of what I was supposed to see when I move into a startup company. Why did I join? I just wanted to be, because when you have like 40, 50 types of clients within my team, we were looking after that many. And there were about four of us within the team, but essentially I have to oversee the financial operations services that we offer to those clients at that point. So I wanted somewhere where I could go in and add value, somewhere where I would just be able to focus on one specific one, that just company, and then I can add value at that level. So yeah, so I joined, and I met Martin, and we talked very, very openly, like, very direct. I don't like stereotype, but you could call it stereotypical German, very direct, tells you exactly what it was looking for, what it liked, what it didn't like. And yeah, and then I spoke to him once, and then actually one of the ladies that now report to me, she was also part of the interview. And then I didn't hear from him for about a week or so. As you know, most CEOs are quite busy, right? So I messaged them to say, Yo, listen, I really like this role. I believe, I mean, actually, when I joined, I gave him a PowerPoint presentation in terms of what I expected to see internally, in terms of our infrastructure, the bread and butter, as your traditional accounts and looking at P&L. But ours is a bit further than that, because you look at the whole setup, um, from banking to purchases to invoices, etc. And so I gave him that presentation. And kind of, I didn't know. I think he asked me a couple of questions, and we bounced off ideas from there. And then he asked me some technical questions around SaaS, software as a service metrics. So for people that don't know what SaaS means, SaaS as SaaS is basically means software as a service. So a good example for you might be Netflix, which means you pay, you use the services, and then you pay monthly. But ours is more B2B, i.e. business to business, instead of B2C, i.e. business to customer. Anyway, so yeah, fast forward a week, and then I messaged him and said, "Listen, I really like the role. I think I can add value, and then I'd like to, bring some skills on board. Also, obviously, improve myself as a person, as a professional." So yeah, and then he go back to me saying he's been busy, etc., and they would like to meet. And this is no joke. Don't do this at home. I didn't even read through my employment contract for real. I just thought, oh yeah, good, sign, move on, and then I went there. Yeah, and that's how the journey started.
So that's how you started. Like, how did you spend your first year?
The first week,
No, the first 3 months.
the first 3 months. Oh my god. I think when I, because at that point they didn't really have anyone in finance, so I was the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
finance
that's
guy
the problem, I
ever.
guess. Just spreadsheet going around.
Yeah. So because during that time I was actually interviewing in other places, so when I just like, okay, I'll leave all the places, I just focus on this one. So when I got the role, I have a there was an expectation in my head in terms of what I should see. Um and I went in, and for the first couple of days I looked around. I not looked around as in physiologically look around the office or anything. No, more like the current infrastructure, what those are, the accounting software looks like. Do we have any invoicing system that can help us to, break our invoices down to basically match the traditional, what not traditional, more the technical way of recognizing revenue as a SaaS business. What does our cash collection look like, and are we doing in terms of cash collection? I remember he said to me, the first win that he wanted me to do is cash collection. And I didn't quite get it at that point. I was like, cash collection? Really? Like, I know, I mean, it's not like we didn't have money in the bank, but why cash collection? I didn't quite get it. But then when I got in, for the first probably after about a week, I was thinking, have I made the right have I made the right decision? Because it was just because it was, I mean, they didn't quite know what to expect, right? And because they've never had anything. And this is one of the beauty of joining that type of company at that age. You It's not for everybody, I can tell you that much. It's You have to be ready to literally get your hands dirty. I looked around and I was like, shall I just leave now in terms of how much work that I need to do? But for me, it was a challenge. I found it quite fascinating. I was like, okay, good. And also one thing that as a motivation then was like, whatever I started doing from that point onwards, and whatever the company achieved from then, I would have contributed massively to the achievement of those goals and objectives of the company, right? So yeah, I went in and I looked around. I was like, oh my god. So, but they were using an external accountant to help them do the books and sort out the invoices and everything else. And I looked at it and I was like, what is going on? You just for people that maybe are not accountants in a way. I mean, I'm a qualified accountant, so and also having worked with lots of companies, including a SaaS company, that's just something that you expect to see on the P&L. Most importantly, you don't expect a lumpy revenue. One month is 100K, next month is 20K, the following month is 30K. Maybe in another industry, you expect something like that. It's not linear. Well, actually, it is linear because as long as you keep growing, you should be seeing the line going that way. But you don't expect this. A bit like a chart, that just go this just
So
batch
they
out
were
and just
recognizing the revenue in the wrong way.
absolutely. So I was like, who is this? But anyway, I spoke to the accountant, and of course, having spoken to them, I know straight away. I mean, without even speaking to them, just looking at the P&L, I just realized I don't think these guys know what they're doing. So my first decision was to, okay, we need to get rid of them. And credit to our CEO then, to our CEO Martin. He was just like, do what you need to do. And for me, that was, for me, the way I read that was like, I trust you. Just get on with what needs to be done in a way, because I didn't have anyone to hand over to say, oh yeah, this is what we've been doing. This is the handover. So I had to get rid of those accountants straight away. That was within a month. Actually, it was more just making sure I understand the service level agreements then, so that we're not going to incur any fine as a result of that. So I got rid of them, brought another person in, and when they came in, they then have about 3 years worth of bank transactions to reconcile. And at this point, after about a month, actually after 2 months, Martin was already asking me, "Oh, when are we gonna get P&L, or when are we gonna get a management report?" I was like, "Is what?" And so I just said to those news guys, of course, he met one of their partners. Then they were like, "Okay, we knew what you need to do." So I basically sat down with them, and then we created a P&L, created a P&L, and then they started doing the reconciliations. Every now and then I would just check with Marty, because he would have recognized some of those transactions. What do we need to do there? What was this one for? And I book a time with him every week to go through that. And then from that is then going through what you will see, things like maybe month end, in terms of the folder structure, because we need evidence. I mean, part of working within finance is making sure you can account for every single transaction that go through your book, right? Even more so if you're a tech company that is just doing something new. Because the way my mentality is that I need to keep a record, I need to keep a structure that whenever someone wants to come in, be auditors, be potential investors, be due diligence and whatever else, they need to be able to look at what we've done. Even when I'm not there, they can go through it and they will understand it. So that when someone else joins the team, it's easy for them to follow the audit trail. They can look at what's been done, what needs to be done without me being there 100%, if that makes sense, or just make it easy for people to be able to follow the trail of what you're doing. So that's why I had to do the folder structure. And from that folder structure, you then move into, okay, in terms of tech stack, what do we need? Because gone are the days where everything still needs to be done with paper, etc. Credit to the to Martin. Then he's always been very big in automation. We're a tech company. Why should we still be dealing with papers and everything else? So I started looking at different software that can help us to automate where we can. Because don't forget, there are two of us in finance then, and the other lady at that point, she was helping with sales operations. So I just came in and I needed to do doing that. I think after 2 or 3 months, we have our first management report, even though it was a bit all over the place in terms of structure, but you have something rough and ready where you can at least give them a feel. At that point, we also needed to do our year end, do our VAT, do all of that. It was all a bit too much, but it was fine in the end. It was fine. But things have changed quite drastically since then. But those early days, the funny thing is when I think about it now, I look like, what? I can't even. It's easy to look back now and like, oh my god, like what? Yeah, it was crazy, really, really was, because
Juggling with staff, firefighting.
yeah, it's just the dynamism of the industry itself. The industry is very dynamic. When you go into a startup company, you don't have someone that'll tell you. You don't have a written rule. You don't have a piece of paper that'll tell you, oh, if this happened, then you need to do this. So that basically means I've held every role from marketing, not as a title, but in terms of actually what I need to do or what we need to do, from HR to marketing to sales. Yeah, I've been on sales calls. I've had to speak to some of our customers about, oh, why do we need certain invoice, certain way, legal, reading through legal papers of, okay, it's a contract agreement, and we need to be able. I mean, we do have a third party legal providers that help us, but it's not like you can knock on that door or just pick up the phone and say, "Oh, I need help now." You've got to be able to just say, "Okay, we need to do this now. What do we do? Or be the office manager, the one that pick up the phone and say, "Oh, hi, this is Vizlib. We need to do a delivery or clean the office." It's just whatever was available that needed to be done to get the job done. Yeah, you have to be ready for it.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating, like the like leaving and growing together with the startups. Like there are so many things you're gonna learn, but also, yeah, you need to be ready to do the job because there's like you said, there's no one you can ask to.
Yeah. It's yes.
And how does it look like right now?
Oh God, things have changed quite drastically. If you think about it, as a startup, you don't even know what the product will be like. The thing is, before I joined Vizlib, it wasn't a pre-money company, i.e., where they just had investments, but they haven't the product is the product was just there is no product per se. That is it's just a concept. We had products that we've already started selling. Um, Customers are already loving our product, and they've already started paying for the products. So it was completely different from a lot of startups I will see these days, whereby they will have really high valuation before they even raise their first invoice. Um, but yeah, so then we since then we've moved offices one to maybe four times. No, yeah, we've moved offices four times since then. We've also grown from 25 people to now about I think 170. Yes, we've also then now in finance team there are about eight of us. um, yeah, so we are going through that scaling process now. A lot has changed. Because now within the finance team we divided into three or four, give or take. We have revenue operations, we have like a BI, and then we have that revenue operations also kind of cover sales operations in a way because they look after the renewals, activations of the deal, and how do we collect our invoices, etc. And then you have the accounting or reporting, so to speak, that looks after our month end. Um, there's two people there, there's our finance manager and our account assistants. All of these happened this year, by the way, because when for the first year it was still myself and a sales operations lady, Sarah, who worked with me then, and it was early no sort of May June last year where we have our finance manager that he joined us. Doc, it's been phenomenal. Again, he came in and I was able to spend some time with him. It actually coincided with the time where we were changing accountants because that's another thing. You just get to a point where you overgrown your service provider. You need to be you need to be above the curve there. I probably lingered a bit too because it wasn't part of the priority. You just have a lot of everything seems to be a priority. Then you're like, oh yeah, we need to do this, and then you do it, and then we need to do this. But when he came in, it coincided with the time where we were changing from one accountancy firm to the other because we've just outgrown them in terms of what we needed from them. We needed them to be much more proactive to tell us, okay, is that something that we should be doing? Is that something that we should be getting ready for from EMI to maybe our first audit or to maybe we need to improve our infrastructure and automate a bit when we can, maybe secretarial work, etc. So he came in at that point, so he's been very very helpful to us, and
So
also
accounting and tax are outsourced, so you have a service provider for that.
well, then now we brought everything in, which means we're now in control of our month end. I think it's phenomenal. Now we close in by day five, give or take, which is pretty awesome. Which is pretty awesome because when you outsource, you're just one of the clients, right? And as much as they try to make sure they get the books ready in time, you're looking at historical information. So the quicker you can have that, the better, because that historical information is history, isn't it? It's already gone. Strategically, you want to be looking at what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next. But for you to do that, you need to be able to look at your actuals and say, okay, how did we do last month? What are the expectations for this month and 3 months? And And then you look at the quarter, and then you look at 6 months, and then you look at 12 months, etc. But then we decided, I think we decided around sort of September, October, because they were also running our space. The accounting firm that we're with, they didn't think that the accounting services was adding value or making much profit to them. So they
Do
then
you think it's
wanted to
critical
see.
for a startup?
Pardon?
Do you think it's critical for a startup to bring accounting and taxes inside?
Oh yes, absolutely. Maybe the accounting bit, the tax aspect of it, which our tax strategy, they still manage that because we are a group and we you need to. So in terms of managing the group tax strategy, that's my bread and butter. Well, I mean, we still use them externally, but we bounce ideas back of each other. Wherever, okay, we need to do this. What can what do we need to be aware of? And it'll take us through the tax risk. And then I just make sure we implement that correctly. So I think that tax bit, we don't have any tax expert, so to speak. Internally now, we use an external company called Kupapari. They're very, very reliable. This when I think that the head of tax is one of my friends called James. Is called James, and we just we know each other before even I started with Vizlib. So yeah, our tax is still with them, but the tax is not something you do month on month, right? It's just when certain things happen or when certain event crystallizes. Let's say you want to set up EMI, which is employee management incentive, whereby employees have shares within the company, and you need to register that with HMRC, etc. Or where you have entities in the US and UK, and you want to manage how the IPs are transferred between those entities, etc. I think that's still very important to have that backbone because at some point you're gonna have to go through funding process. You're gonna have to be audited. So I think it's good, but it's very very important as soon as you can, bring your month end back in those because then you are responsible for it. What we make sure now is that our account systems reconcile all our bank accounts, especially the UK ones and the US ones, weekly. Actually, maybe it does it daily. I don't know. But the thing is, we're then in control of when we close our books, which means by day four, day five, if everyone sort of do what they need to do. So I think that's definitely very important. It adds value, so much value.
Okay, so I see a couple of topics here. So you mentioned cash collection at the beginning. Is that still a thing? Because I see that you still work. I mean, you work mainly with enterprise customers.
Yeah, we work with B2B customers, and a lot of them are multinational companies, right? And for them, obviously, cash is king for everybody. Especially even more important for us because we've been bootstrapping. And for in layman's term, what that means is we've never really gone through maybe Series A, B, C, D, etc. What we've been making within the business is what we'll reinvest in the business, right? And that is almost unheard of to be at the level of growth or ARR, annual recurring revenue, that we are now, and still haven't gone through what you see as Series A or proper Series B, etc. Is incredible. So now we make part of our KPI within the team is our cash collection, whether that's we started off with 45, I think. Now we've 50% now, and then 55%. The team is doing a wonderful job to keep that at a really high level. I believe we this year we've been hitting 65, 70% collection. It's almost unheard of. But if you get the basics right, if you have the right infrastructure and the right type of people within the team, I believe that's possible. Um, Also, you know that the growth that the company has been experiencing, you're playing as a team, we are playing a significant part in that growth, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's still part of our KPI.
I guess you need to have a really strong work collaboration with sales. Because usually what you have is okay, sales they're gonna sell, then they have quotes, they're gonna close the quote, and then you need to create invoice. Were you able to automate this process or
Um, the bits that we've been able to automate is the chase in a way, which you use a system called Chase IHQ. It might be getting to the end of its life now as we grow, as we scale. And what that does is you set up an email notification. It's up to you if you want to do it once a week or twice a week. I believe we started with twice a week. first on Monday and then on Tuesday. So you will just flash an email to whoever you have your invoices, the unpaid invoices are AR, account receivables, and then we'll get a reply from them. Once we get a reply and that communication has already started within the team, then we turn off the notification because it's just unprofessional when you've already established a relationship, but yet you're still chasing them on the automatic email. So we do that. But in terms of our sales, it's a bit different because with SaaS company you have the new ticket, i.e. the new sales, and then you have your renewals, and then you have the expansions, etc. Where or upsell, where because we charge by user. So maybe someone has 100 users or 1,000 users at the moment. They then want to have add extra 50 or extra 100 or extra 250 or something to that. Sometimes you could plan for that, but at times most of the time it's up to the sales team to reach out to anyone who's already using a specific number of products and they need to add users, or it might be a cross sale where we have five major products now, but it's possible for you to have two or three products, but you don't have the other. And then the sales team will go to them and say, okay, do you like this? Or, would you be interested via a demo and everything else? So they'll just make sure as soon as the deal is closed, we do the activation and then we go through the process of onboarding where we'll invoice, or maybe we need a PO, or maybe we need anything, a quotation or agreement that needs to be signed. We just make sure we send them an invoice ASAP. And one of the most important process of that is making sure that you invoice from the day where the customers start using the product. Because if there's a time lag, and we've gone through this, by the way, most companies will have a time where things just weren't perfect. But once you find out, you just then need to sort of find solution to that. Whereby it's possible that a customer would have been using the product for 1 month, but due to some sort of logistical issues, whereby they just in the PO and we couldn't raise an invoice, they would then have used the product for a month and they still don't have invoice. And because of that system, some of them use a really old system where you can't. They need the invoice to be from the present point, not backdated, for example. So, from our perspective, that's 1 month worth of revenue that you've already lost, and how do you account for that? It's a revenue loss. So we just make sure that we close that gap quite quickly, and we make sure we invoice them straight away. So we work really well with our sales team, and they are a lot of good guys.
So I guess your business doesn't fit perfectly in a classical subscription. Like, I mean, you cannot leverage a Stripe because, or any
Oh,
system like
we
that.
do use Stripe
Okay.
because we still have direct sales or inbound and outbound sales team, right? However, with our product, you can still go online, and this is more relevant to the smaller number of license users, which is like a B2C or maybe B2B, but in a much lower units, if that makes sense. So you can buy our product from the website. You need to log into the website. This is all DIY, i.e., do it yourself kind of process where you just go in, you log in, you download the product, you go through the license agreement, and then you say, okay, I need 10 users. And then you go through that process, you register your bank card or credit card, and the third party collection is Stripe. So we then see that deal. So no one really needs to touch that process unless something didn't work, or maybe an authentication fail. For example, we had that issue this morning where I had to work with our dev team, our R&D team, I the developers to find out what is it, why was certain payments are still bouncing or they're not coming across, etc. So yes, we use Stripe. So Stripe help us to Stripe is just one of the best provider of that. I mean, there are lots of other providers in the market, but sometimes if it doesn't break, you don't need to fix it in a way.
Yeah, don't fix it until it breaks.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So you mentioned, okay, so you have a sales service component, then it goes through Stripe. Then for the sales part, it's more manual because you have bigger customers. So it depends on basically the cycle of the customer, what kind of buying process they have.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our team that will still reach out every now and then to do an outbound, the process of usual sales where you're trying to convince customer. But I think if you have a really good product, sometimes word of mouth just also helps where someone already using our product and then they telling other people, or when we have a road show, or when we have, like, for example, we just had Big Data London, which is just a spot where you have lots of other tech businesses come together and you can go to different booths and speak to customers, or maybe your existing customers already there, or you can even look at your competitors. Like, okay, what are the competitors doing? What does that new product look like? And you just gather ideas and everything else.
You mentioned that you close your books by day five. How do you do that?
I'm not gonna take credit for this, but I would say our finance manager and accounts assistant are doing a fantastic job. But that just based on the standards that we've set ourselves. First is to make sure, depending on how many bank accounts you have, obviously, is to get yourself an account assistant. Even if it's not an account assistant that maybe you can't afford one yet, if you outsource it, there's a lot of practice out there who are more than happy to give you a dedicated account assistant who just spends once a week. They make sure your accounts are reconciled, because it's just, if you think about it, a lot of the transactions, or all the transactions that goes into your P&L or whatever books you use, comes from your bank account, right? As long as those bank accounts are reconciled daily or weekly by minus day one, i.e., maybe before the last day of the month, you already know by the end of the month, you only have maybe a few transactions left, right, to reconcile. And payroll, you do that before the month end anyway, because people get paid last working day of the month. So you can already just do your payroll journal the same day, or maybe a day after that. So already you save yourself maybe 2 or 3 days to make sure you get those ready. And then if you have a cost center like we do, we have Germany, Sweden, and Poland. You make sure that locally everyone understand what the expectations are. I mean, of course, there's still things that we need to improve on. But that's why you have prepayment and accruals, adjustment, etc. If we know that last month maybe the invoice from one of our cost centers was £1 million, just hypothetically, that shouldn't really change much. Even if it's going to change, you just make sure you accrue for it. And then once you receive the invoice, you can then reverse the accrual and add the invoices, etc. And these are just basic accounting stuff. But if you have a finance manager or an account assistant, they can easily work on this and understand the process quite quickly. And then there's a revenue recognition, i.e., the reconciliation of, okay, because we use SaaS Optics, which is like I missed this bit. When I first started, I was doing our SaaS revenue recognition on Excel. It was a nightmare, because imagine you have about maybe 200, 300 invoices, and all those customers starts on a different date. You then need to break those down by day and then do it month by month. And that's very, very manual, right? So which is how we ended up with SaaSoptic. And SaaSoptic was the best that we could get in the market. But maybe there's been more now. And actually, they've just either merged with ChargeBee or Chargeify or something. It's now called Maxio. But anyway, so what that does is basically you raise your invoice on there, and then you set up the system correctly so that it recognizes your revenue from the day when you raise from the invoice date, and then it breaks it down. You can then do the same with your MRR and everything else. Imagine if you have to do this on Excel. It's a nightmare. It's okay to start with, to do Excel to start with, but as you scale, even I mean, yeah, I wouldn't recommend to using Excel for that. So there, so then we have a revenue recognition and reconciliation process that does shouldn't take a day, because we know in terms of sales report, I still do that sales report just because I more or less know what's happening, and think that's also changed historically. What we report right now, we report our ARR, the growth month on month, year on year. We do our net retention revenue. We do what does the expansion looks like, what's the impact of FX, all the usual SaaS metrics that you see. And then, so yeah, once all of that is done, you can basically do this. If everything is correctly set up and you manage people's expectation and you set out the standards to say, okay, we have a very, very high standard, not just within the team, within the company as a whole, that everyone needs to bring their A game to close by day 4, day 5. That's the standard that we've hold ourselves to. I think once or twice, especially when we first brought the month end internally, it took us a bit of a time to just adjust a bit. But once you adjust, then it shouldn't really change much, to be honest. As you scale, it just be the number of units of transaction will be increasing, you'll be getting bigger. But if you have the right system in place and you automate correctly, it is possible.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this? Because you mentioned like something like continuous revision. Is that something that you do manually, or you have like is your accounting software helping with this? Or
Sorry, say that again.
yeah, so you mentioned that you have like you like to have continuous reconciliation for your bank accounts.
Hmm.
So something that you can do pretty much every day, and that will help you with the closing. Like,
Yeah.
do you have is your accounting software helping you with this, or right now you have your team like every day reconciling the bank accounts?
Yeah, so we have the accounting software just help because if you set up there's a lot of the accounting software these days they will have an API with bank accounts, i.e., they will have a direct integration with the bank accounts where you don't need to. I'll be very surprised if there's any other accounting software out there that you still need to download a bank CSV file and then upload it to the accounting software. I'll be very surprised. But anyway, so yeah, so we use a QuickBooks and there's a live feed in all the bank accounts. And yes, the account assistants still need to go on there and like manually reconcile them. But the point is, if you're doing your reconciliation daily, you shouldn't really have hundreds and hundreds of reconciliation daily. It should be maybe, I don't know, depending on the size of the business. Obviously, it depends on what type of business it is. If they have high value, low units or high units, low value, then it's a different approach then. So maybe my strategy, if I work for that type of company, would be a bit different. But if we're talking 30, 40 transactions a day, you can do that within an hour or so. Because we use QuickBooks. But I think on Zero, having used Zero previously during my practice days, there's an AI within it that would just sort of think, you can set it up with rules, where basically it will reconcile the same transactions as is done in the last, previously, which is basically artificial intelligence that says, okay, I recognize the name of this supplier and I recognize the invoice, and then it will automatically reconcile it for you. You don't need to go on it. All you need to do is tick, 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 tick. Oh, okay, is that yes? Is that no? Which means the manual input is very minimal. But for now, we still need someone to go in and reconcile. But that's probably about what, half an hour, 45 minutes a day. Even if it's an hour a day, that's, well, give or take 5 hours a week. It saves you almost a day at the end of the month, or maybe 2 days, because that's all you need. As long as you have that. And our finance manager already set up the consolidation file. All we need is TB from other entities. You drop it in, more or less know what you need to do. Then just review your P&L by GL, and then make sure you can explain the variance between that.
Okay, so like okay, I guess it makes sense. Like 30 minutes every day to close your book in 5 days at the end of the month. I think that's a good deal.
Absolutely. I think it's worth it, yes.
Um, is there any part of things you're currently struggling around now, or things you know trying to fix them or automate more in your finance department?
Right now, I believe our we use a system called Pipe Drive. I don't know if I mean, possibly our listeners will recognize them, and it just gets to a point where you've used it, and as you scale, you need to start thinking, okay, maybe it's time to move away from this. But of course, it doesn't. We're almost at that stage. because now we can see, especially around renewals, where okay, someone we have, because a lot of our customers, they will just have 12 months deals. Some of them will have 3 years, but it's very rare where they have more than 3 years. So you more or less know what it is, but then you need to uplift some of them by certain percentage due to increase in inflation linked increase, etc. Um, where you then need to uplift that. That's become an issue for us. So we are going through a process now of identifying maybe we need a much medium size or larger ERP. And as you know, to migrate from that kind of sort of ERM, ERP system to something better itself is a project. So one of the things I've been doing now is speaking to a pipe drive third party who could possibly help us optimize the system. It might work that way, or it might just be, "Do you know what, we need to buy the bullet right now," and then just try to move into something else. So that's a bit of a pain. And then also our cash flow forecast. A lot of our, most people now, within my professional network anyway, they all use Excel, and Excel is just much more features, much more. It's more hands-on compared to having a software. However, we believe that that's a software out there that can help us. We've spoken to two or three now. In fact, before I joined you today, we spoke to another provider, and it's looking positive, but it's still very fiddly because the implementation takes you about 3 months to implement it. And you don't just implement a cash flow software forecast and say, okay, that's it, that's it, everybody. You still need to invest time in it. First, we'll understand the system. How does it recognize certain inputs? Because we have data from all over the place, from at least five or six different sources of data. Um, and a lot of finance team, regardless of the business, will tell you it's the same issue. In fact, we could be using Vizlib product to do this, but a lot of data that we use, some of them are confidential. So you need to be clever understanding, okay, do you use your internal tools? Can you get a developer internally to come and help you with it? But you then need to anonymize some of the transactions, which it just doubles the effort a bit. So I think that's the bit that we would like to do. And also with our AP, for the last 4 or 5 years that I spent within tech, I'm still to find an AP system that automates your payment, you know, whereby it has a direct linked with your accounting software, and you can just look at the list of your invoices that are outstanding, and you can click on okay, pay, 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 and then it just fires onto your bank account, withdraws the money, and then it pays the and then it settles the invoice for you. It still hasn't happened yet, and I've been spoken to quite a few. It feels as though the issue is with an API integration with banks or maybe some sort of legal ramifications. But it's quite weird that even though have lots of advanced technology, there's still no provider in the market that could do that. I don't know. Maybe that's an idea for another startup.
Have you thought I thought that QuickBooks could settle payments?
They would say it, but no, it's not because you
Okay.
still need to manually go on it. You can't make a payment on QuickBooks. Not that I know of. But now that you mention it, I'm thinking, is that real? But I don't know. But I'm gonna speak to my team after this call actually, just to say, have we looked into this? But not that I'm aware of. Because even if it's possible, don't forget it would just be a small feature on QuickBooks, right? It's not the main, it's not their bread and butter. It's not, that's not part of their core competency. So, or even their competitive advantage. So it's very likely that if it does exist, it's not going to give you the full shebang of what you need. It would just be, okay, you can see all your invoices, but you still need to manually go to your bank account and make the payment.
So cash flow, having a good tool that maybe can supplement or help you with your spreadsheets. And the other one is AP, right? So these
Yes.
are the main things you're struggling with right now.
Yeah, and then that's the ERP aspect of it.
ERP part. Yeah, I know a lot of companies usually when they're at your stage, they look at, I don't know, NetSuite, or that's the most common one, actually.
Yeah, that's true. It's possible we might look at that too. I think by, I mean, Q4 is going to start next week or in 2 weeks' time. By that point, I'm supposed to have gone start looking at the a list of possible ERP system that might be able to help us. So we'll see. But NetSuite is, I've had some feedback on NetSuite and the implementation of it, etc. Um, yeah, because if you think about it, there is no system that would do 100% of what you need. You just have to pick and choose and say, okay, I have 10 main issues that I want, 10 main pain points that I'd like to fix. However, out of these 10, which system can offer, you'll be lucky if you get one that can offer you six or seven. You still need to kind of compensate for three that the system cannot help you with. So it's just a matter of looking at them. Then you have to think about cost benefit analysis and you build a business case where you need to then make a decision to say, okay, which one is going to, because you can't, as you know, you can't keep migrating system every 3 years or 4 years or so. It takes a long time it's
It's
a
a pretty big
project in
investment also.
itself. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have a few friends that they started like ERP implementation projects. They know when they started, they don't know when they're going to finish. That's usually the problem.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not surprised. Also the lesson that I've learned by whilst migrating ERP, in my previous life is don't use the don't use the provider themselves. Always use a third party because the provider very likely they know the system, but what the system does, the architecture, the strengths and weaknesses of it, they do not know enough of it than the third party. And the third party, very, very likely, the third party consultant, very likely they will help you a bit more than what you will get from the provider, from the software providers themselves.
Yeah, it was pretty insightful. It's time to wrap up, Idris. And usually the way in which I wrap up is I ask you like a few quick questions.
Yes.
Are you ready for them?
Okay, this are the ones that I'm not prepared for. Go on, let's do it.
Okay, what is the best piece of advice that you ever received?
Oh, there are quite a few. There are quite a few. So I'm just gonna choose two. I'm very lucky to have a couple of mentors who are extremely so generous with their time. And I would say get yourself a mentor and a coach. They don't do the same thing. If you're lucky, you'll find someone who just happy to give you that time for free, and you obviously need to respect their time and your time. But coach and mentor don't do the same. You might need to invest in it because it's an investment for personal development. Um, but yeah, I would say get yourself a mentor and a coach. That's one thing. The second one is if you want to do anything or you want to learn anything or do anything, the easiest and the best way is just to do it. It doesn't matter how much book you read, doesn't matter how so are giving advice and telling you this, until you go through the process yourself and come out of the other side and just the experience it's incredible. And the experience, whatever that experience is that you've gained, it can never be taken away from you. That is with you for the rest of your life.
I have one like it's like a question that I wanted to ask you right now because of the things that you said. Like, how do you find coaches and mentors? Because I think it's key. But like, where do you find them actually?
Sorry, how do I find them useful? How do I find
No,
them
no,
out?
no. Where do you actually find them? Like, did you use a platform or just friends of friends or friends?
Okay, so for the mentor, I was listening to this podcast. I can't remember. I think it's called CFO podcast. That's a few of them. Because for me, my ambition is to become a CFO. I don't know if that's in the next 3 years or 5 years. It will happen. It's just a matter of time, right? Uh, and for me to be that person, I need to first start to be that person, but then start speaking to people that are already there, that they've been there and done it. Okay. And one of them is actually a listed CFO. He's worked for a lot of listed companies and he's still working for one or two. And then the other one is a startup CFO or startup scale up CFO, because I can tell you now, they're complete two different people. And the way they think about things is completely different, because it's different challenges if you're a listed company, and it's completely different challenges if you're a startup and a scale up company. I found them. I just took initiative. I listened to them on the podcast, and then he talked about five I can tell you now, actually. Let me Yeah, oh yes, I have my notes here. And then I listened to it, and then what really attracted me to him, he talked about 5 C's of leadership, and he talked about context, commitment, clarity, connection, and compassion. So I listened to him, and he was talking specifically around SaaS companies and how do you manage them and all of this stuff. And I would love to stay to this guy. So I messaged him on LinkedIn and said, listen, I listened to your podcast and you talk about this, and I would really, really appreciate it. If you can just give me some, I don't know how long this is for. I don't even know if you're going to reply this or not. If you can give me your time and just at least listen to me and get what I was trying to achieve in my life, maybe you could be of help. Patrick replied, and he's like, "Yes, why not? Let's do it." I was like, "Oh my god!" And now I've been speaking to him now for about 9 months or 10 months or so. So we just book some time in monthly, and we do that. And the other guy, Prakash. I actually, before there used to be this thing on LinkedIn. It was a feature where you can ask for men. You could say you're looking for a mentor. I think they stopped it now, unfortunately. So they then try to use AI to match your profile with someone else within your study. So I somehow found him. But at that point, we were both working around the tech hub of London, Shoreditch, Old Street area, and I messaged him on LinkedIn, and then he said, "Oh yeah, let's meet because we weren't far." So we met for coffee, and then we spoke. And again, my type of people, very very direct, no messing about, because he would tell me if I was being a spoiled brat or something, or if I was overreacting about something, or if I just need to look at things different. So yeah, and then we had about 2 years where we didn't speak because I was just going through a process of changing jobs, a lot of things changing. I was also studying, finishing my masters and everything else. So I then messaged him again, I think a year into my role at Vizlib. So now we meet again once a month, or if we need to change things, I try. I mean, of course, I had to be flexible and to whatever they have going on. Um, but yeah, that's how I found mine. But that's also words of mouth, and also if you have that's a lot of professional Slack channels or no. Now I'm part of two or three of them. A lot of these people, obviously, everyone is busy. They're even busier. I mean, being a CFO is not a scratch, right? Just reach out, ask people about it. Coaching, that's a completely different thing, because they look around your lifestyle and they look at your values. What is it that you're trying to get out of life? For me, part of my thing is getting the balance right between my work and and my family time without losing value, and being able to focus, and honesty, integrity, etc. And also changing my paradigm, how I look at things. When people say balance, work-life balance, it doesn't exist when you think about it. I will log off at work at 6 p.m. and I can tell you, maybe for the next 2 or 3 hours, I'm still thinking about things that I didn't do or things that I should have done. And then on a Saturday, of course, I spend time with my family, etc. But I then need to make a note of what's in my head. What do I need to write down? But why am I thinking about these things? Why is it that all of this is coming to my head? Yeah, so that's how I found my mentor. But the coaching is more. I had to speak to someone, and they introduced me to them, and it's a time and money investment for coaching, really.
That was really, really cool. Like, I mean, I really appreciate that. First of all, the fact that you decided to take initiative. Like, this is on me. I need to find people that could help me. And yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I'm also looking for a coach and a mentor. So I'm gonna take your advice. I'm just gonna send a message to someone and see what
Yeah,
happens.
or you might even, maybe you already have a couple of people that you look at them, you're like, oh, I would like to do what they do, what they've done, etc. I think someone told me, oh, if you never ask, the answer will always be no. Like if you don't ask, then it's a no, right? Just ask, and then somewhere, somehow, someone will say yes. I also know that some mentors that want to get paid for their time. Why not? If you feel like, okay, you can afford it, and then you can find someone. Also, that's a personality match, right? Because you need to know what you're expecting from them, and you need to then take them very, because it's their time and it's your time. It doesn't matter if you're paying for it. You've got to take that relationship very, very seriously, because people will lose. Yeah, I mean, you lose respect. People will also lose interest quite quickly when they feel like, well, I'm giving this guy my time, or this woman or my time, and and it doesn't matter if that person is man or woman. I don't really care. For me, yeah, they just when I speak to them, I just want to shut up and listen, because I come to them with, oh yeah, this is going on. What do you think? And they will just introduce completely different set of perspective, and I'll be there just like, and then I forget to take notes because I want to take notes so I could go back and read the notes and say, oh yeah, crap. And this is what we talked about. Because every time, sometimes it's a continuous of what you've talked about last time, and you need to proceed with that. Or it's just something new completely. Oh, we're going through this and I've never gone through it before. What do I do? How do I approach it?
Okay. Um, Next question. What's your main passion outside of work?
Fitness is a big thing for me. Of course, family is family, right? I mean, everyone is passionate about their family, but for me, I like to keep fit. Yeah, my alarm goes off about 5:30, so I can go to the gym really early before I come to work. Sometimes I go to do yoga. I started doing yoga about 6 7 years ago, but that's just because I was always worried that because I put my body through so much with rowing and gym, etc. Maybe I wasn't doing something right, and I need to improve my flexibility. That's how I go into yoga. So yeah, I'd love to think I'm sporty. Usual traveling, I love traveling, and I do cook quite a lot. So it's just, yeah, what goes in comes out, right? I mean, what you eat, yeah, what you
Yeah.
eat determines everything. So if you lack energy, if you don't have enough energy, you can't keep relying on coffee. Coffee isn't going to solve the problem. You have to first think, okay, what is it that is, what am I putting into my body? Because for me, I also believe that your body can't give you what you haven't given your body, and it's your responsibility to look after it. Like literally, if you look after your body will look after you. Like that's just the way it is. I can count how many times I've taken time off work in the last 4 years. I'm not saying that that, of course, there's some luck to it, but you've got to try and make your own luck, basically. So yeah, I listen to music, travel. Yeah, I love traveling, and I do some work for a charity. Also, I just started a treasury role as a trustee within a charity called PKD. They are on LinkedIn. So yeah, and I try to give as much back as much as I can.
It seems you try to keep yourself very busy.
Yeah, I think for me, I it's not just busy for the sake of being busy. It's more thinking, how much can I get out of myself without running myself to ground, obviously, and also what can I give back to the environment, to the society that made me. And I think if we all consciously try to look after each other, I think we hopefully can make the world better in one way or the other. And I think that's very, very important. It doesn't matter. I mean, instead of giving money to charity, I would rather give my time, because I think my time is more valuable than money in a way. And also that means I can sort of dictate what I like to give and what I don't like to give in a way. I still raise money for one or another charity called Crisis, which is like an homeless charity in the UK. a lot of the time in during Christmas holidays, you they will open different shelters across London, and you can volunteer there during Christmas time. And so I like to do that, but that's obviously my time. And whilst I'm doing that, I'll open a page, a Virgin giving page, and then people can donate and everything else.
That's also very nice. Um, I mean, there are so many questions now that I felt to ask, but let's follow the plot. Is there anything in particular that you're learning right now?
Uh okay, so I've just finished doing my Scrum Master course. It's called PSM 1. So I've just finished that because financial transformation is something that I really, really, really like. I mean, everything that we've been talking about around system migration, these are all part of financial transformation, by the way. But what agile methodology helps you to do is to be able to manage them in a way where you have different teams, i.e., the dev team, and you basically the one that you're in the middle of all of it, and you are trying to bring different parties together to make sure everyone's, i.e., stakeholder, to then make sure that all of them can get what like what they need really. Um, so yeah, so I've just finished that now. Just did my PSM. I think I got 90%, and the limit of what you have to get, I think, is 80% or 70% or something. So I was quite
Congratulations.
proud. Yeah, so I was quite proud of myself. Yeah, so I've just finished that, but I believe there's still more for me to learn about Scrum itself as a methodology, and then hopefully I can start spending more time around that system migration, financial transformation part of my work in a way.
Yeah, that's also quite cool. Like head of finance learning about like concept that they're directly coming from, I don't know, IT, from software development.
It's awesome. Actually, I didn't realize this until our FD. I was telling him about this, and he thinks, and I was saying maybe because our finance manager report to me, and I was saying, oh, maybe you should try this. And our FD just reminded me that okay, Idris, you're just more product kind of you love getting into the product, the tech part of the business, and understanding what's happening there. Not everyone like that, and for me, that was a self awareness in terms of thinking, actually, yeah, that's true. But for me, I just like if I'm working with the product, I need to be able to talk about the product. I need to understand what is it that these products do. What is it? How can I learn about the product? So some of the products that we have I can probably tell you about all of them, but in terms of usability, maybe not use all of them, but I use some of them now, especially around our SaaS metrics reporting. And for me, I just find it fascinating. Technically, I mean, IT or technology, I love to. I can't tell you that I'm a geek, but it's something that I'm passionate about and I learn to learn about.
I mean, I guess it makes a lot of sense because you work for a tech company.
Yes, that's true. But I
Okay.
know some people that work for tech companies and they don't necessarily, they're not that interested in it. For them, it's just something that they do, which is also fine. But for me, I genuinely like it. I want to know more. And my best friend at work, his name is Piers, so weekly we'll set up a time. We've been doing that now for the last 3 years actually, where he would just tell me what features they're working on and how that's going. And then I'll ask him about the new product. And then he will ask me from a finance perspective, what's going on with this? What do you do with this? And it's just that exchange of knowledge. And again, if you don't ask, you will always be no. I just speak to this guy and say, oh, I like to learn about it. And again, a lot of developers, because some of them like to be on their own, and they don't feel as though you want to know anything about what they do. So when you ask them that, I'm actually interested in what you do, they're like, oh, really? And then they go on and on and on. And I find that quite fascinating.
Yeah, I know developers can talk for hours about what they do.
Yeah.
But it's pretty nice that you're trying to bridge this gap between okay, finances is not just bookkeepers, they're not just watchdog, they're not just running behind the books and money. Like they really want to know about the company, how the company is doing, the features, all these sort of things. Like it's not like, yes, like an afterthought. Finance, like finance is at the core of the company, and like it works together with all the other departments.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I like is I don't like being pigeonholed. Like put that, oh, it's just an accountant. But I love to think I'm a lot much more than accountant. And when you work for a startup or scale up, you need to be much more than what your job title say. You need to be. That's just the way. You can't pigeonhole yourself and say, okay, I only do this. Maybe when a company becomes, I mean, you have like 500 or 1,000 head count, it's easy for people to cruise and say, okay, I only just do this bit. I don't do this part of it. For me, that's just not going to fly. I want to get involved in different things. I don't believe in jack of all trade, master of none. I think, yeah, of course, I'm a qualified accountant, but I know a lot of other things that I bring to the table, right? Be it legal, marketing, sales, product development, and all these areas that just kind of bring you together and make you you, really.
Idris, it was a great interview. I really appreciate all the things that you said. It was really great. I also learned a lot. So thank you for this. If people wants to learn about Vizlib, they can check their website, vizlib.com.
Absolutely.
If people want to get in touch with you, or maybe they want to ask you if you want to be their mentor or their coach, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. There's not very many Idris on LinkedIn. It spells Idriz. Yeah, just find me on there. More than happy to connect and obviously expand my network and see how I can also learn from whoever it is. Because yeah, in terms of ocean of knowledge in the world, we don't even know a drop of it. That's how much is still there to know. Like if you think you know enough, you probably don't know anything. That's how I look at it.
It's a good way to
But
put
no,
it.
it's been an absolute pleasure, Christian. I really, really love our chat, and hopefully we could do it. I don't know, maybe another time or so.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna put the your LinkedIn profile in the show notes so people can find you easily.
Please,
And yeah, it was a pleasure. Wishing you the best.
fabulous. Thank you so much. All the best.